to another video. And today we're just going to be finishing up making our final picks for the over-unders for the 2025 season. The first one we're looking at today is the 8.5 line for the Seahawks. I like the over on this one. I think they improved at quarterback. I think they got a little bit more stable. I think Geno's actually a pretty good quarterback, but Sam, I think, just offers a little bit more upside, maybe a little bit more mobile, kind of back on the West Coast, a USC kid, more local. I think he might do really well. He put up great numbers in Minnesota last year. It was a great scheme, great coach, great receivers. I think he's going to be able to have some really good success this year as well. I think I'm leaning towards making them like one of the wild card teams. I'm not sure they can win that division, but looking at the schedule, I like Mike McDonald as well. I think he has his guys ready every single week. He can definitely coach up that defense. There's talent on that secondary. The games against Arizona are going to be huge. I think both teams are going to want to win those, obviously. I think everybody in that division, 1 through 4, Rams, Niners, Cardinals, Seahawks, they all think they can be a playoff team, and that's what makes it intriguing. Nobody's going to roll over. Nobody's looking forward to 2 years from now. Nobody's looking forward to the draft. They're going to put their best foot forth and field their best team every single week. Looks like they're playing the AFC South this year. If I'm not mistaken, the Texans, Titans, Colts, and the Jags. The AFC South, I think they can go 3-1 there, honestly. They can definitely beat Indy, definitely beat Tennessee on the road. Probably just drop one to Houston. That's a Monday nighter. They should show up for that one. Nothing is really daunting about the schedule. I like that number, 8.5. This feels like a 9-8 team, 10-7. I'd even feel comfortable penciling them in for 10 wins. I think they're a playoff team. I think Sam Darnold's going to have a really good year. Not quite as good as last year because obviously he doesn't have the same amount of weapons, as good of a scheme, I would assume, with Kevin O'Connell being one of the best offensive minds in the league. But still, there's enough there in Seattle for them to make the playoffs and put together a really good year. So I feel comfortable with the 8.5. I also feel really comfortable with the over 7.5 on the Patriots. Drake May is getting a lot of hype this offseason. For good reason. He's big, strong, arm, feet, coachable, can move around the pocket, can make plays outside of the pocket, different arm angles. He can make every throw on the field, so it's not a matter of talent with him. And then last year, they had so many shortcomings, so many limitations personnel-wise, just not enough skill positions. They weren't coached well enough with Coach Mayo last year. It felt like the locker room was disjointed, players pulling in different directions, not on board with the coach's schemes and all that stuff. A lot of chaos, which is rare in New England, but it has happened in the past few years. I think Mike Vrabel, day one, he's already starting to restore the locker room back to a disciplined, do your job mentality, order, no chaos, no BS, everybody do your job. We're contributing to win football games, not to look good on an individual level. And I think that's going to really benefit Drake May a lot. He's got all the talent in the world. Then they bring in guys like Stephon Diggs. They sign a lot of free agents on the defensive side of the ball. Vrabel likes to run the football. He likes to play really good physical defense. I think that the Patriots are going to be in a lot of games. I think Vrabel is comfortably a top 10 coach in this league, and coaching is huge. I think it's a match made in heaven between him and the Patriots. The division is kind of soft. We're going to take a look at their schedule, last place schedule. Then there's some games against the Jets, obviously, that they seem to always win pretty much every single year. They open up against the Raiders, at the Dolphins, Steelers, Panthers. There's some wins there. At New Orleans, wins. At Tennessee, they're going to think they should win that game. Who knows? They play the NFC South, Atlanta, Tampa. Against the Giants, that should be a win. A nice late bye in Week 14 to get the guys off their feet for the last 5 games of the year. They're going to love that. Buffalo, Baltimore. Yeah, the schedule gets tough after the bye, but it's late. It's definitely late. So I think even the schedule works to their favor. I really like the 7.5. I think they might even compete for the playoffs. They might try to sneak in as a 7 seed in the AFC. I'm not picking them to do it. I think they're still a year or two away with Drake May, but 7.5 wins I think they can easily get to 8. No way. No reason they shouldn't get to 8 wins. Atlanta is very interesting as well. I know I picked Tampa Bay previously to win that division and pretty comfortably. And I think this is a tough spot for Raheem Morris. I think there was a lot of expectations going into last year. They expected more out of Kirk Cousins, but his body just didn't have anything left to give. And that's what happens sometimes. Some guys pop their Achilles, and then they're just never the same. That injury should never just be shrugged off. It takes a lot out of a guy. So I'm not blaming Kirk. I'm not blaming Raheem Morris. They took a big swing on the free agent market, and it happens. But credit to them for having enough foresight to also draft Michael Penix. From what I've seen, what we saw last year from Michael Penix, he can make the throws. I think he needs to anticipate the openings, the routes a little bit better with his wide receivers, but that's going to happen. The more he plays, the more snaps he gets, the more starts he gets. I think he's talented. Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, he went on TV a couple days ago saying they love what he's showing in camp. Michael Penix is drawing comparisons to early, young Matt Stafford. I'm not sure I completely buy that, but still, I like the idea of him growing with this amazing young core of skill position players. I'm talking Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, the offensive line. There's just so much young talent, first-round picks, top 5 picks, top 10 picks. Michael Penix fits right in there. They're all kind of working on the same timeline, whereas with Kirk Cousins, it felt like he only had 2 or 3 years left, and now we know it's probably less given the injuries and the state of his body. And then all these young guys are ascending. So now you have a quarterback who's also ascending, who's also not even in his prime yet, entering his prime, trying to get better every single day. Everybody's on the same timeline there. I think that's going to work really well for the Falcons. And for that reason, I'm going to go over 7.5 wins. I think they get to the playoffs this year. I think they're going to pound the ball with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, take some pressure off of Bijan as well. But over 7.5 wins in that division, I think they can get it done. I know everybody thinks Carolina is vastly improved. I think they are as well, personnel-wise. They spent the first-round pick on the wide receiver, getting Bryce Young some more weapons. They're doing the right thing, trying to add more talent around Bryce Young, give him a fair shot, give him an O-line, give him protection, give him guys to throw the football to and see what he can do. I still think they're a couple years away. There's a lot of gaping holes on that team. There's some good players on both sides of the ball, but not enough to really field a really competitive team that can win every single week. They're going to get blown out quite a few times this year. I think they're not bottom feeders like they were last year or a couple years ago, but they're moving in the right direction. Not quite there yet. I think 6-11 is right about fair for them. Under 6.5 wins. I think Indianapolis might be a dumpster fire given the quarterback situation. These are the situations that can go sideways really quickly. Daniel Jones is who I expect to start more football games, but then at some point they're going to want to take another look at Anthony Richardson. They invested a really, really high draft pick on him, first-round pick. He's got all the talent in the world, the body, the frame, but then we all knew he was a raw prospect coming out of Florida, didn't get enough starts, really didn't learn enough of the nuances of the game, and then the game can kind of get too quick for him, but who knows what they're going to do at that position. I really like their coach, former offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, Shane Steichen. I think he's really bright, but at that position, when there's kind of chaos at that position, there's only so much a team can do. I like Jonathan Taylor. I like that offensive line. There's talent all over this team, but it feels like they're a quarterback away, and they don't really have a definitive answer at that position right now, and that's the one position you do need an answer to have success in this league. So under 6.5 wins. I'm going over 6.5 because I really believe in Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter. I'm not going to call him the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL, but I like it when GMs take big swings. I know they got a kid GM over there in Jacksonville. He's a young guy trying to make a name for himself, but I didn't hate the draft day trade. They gave up a farm. They moved up and selected Travis Hunter, cornerback / wide receiver out of Colorado. I think he's gifted. And the more gifted players you can really put on a roster, the more, not only the more attractive of a team is it going to be, I think they're really going to start moving in the right direction. I think if Trevor stays healthy, he's as good as anyone, really. He hasn't really lived up to the hype of being that generational prospect we've been tracking for years since he was in high school and winning national titles in Clemson, and then being drafted number 1 overall. He has won a playoff game. I think people forget a couple of years ago the team was 8-3, competing for the 1 seed when he was healthy. Had the ankle injury on a Monday night, and then that kind of derailed that season. Last year, injuries, body betrayed him, couldn't really get into a rhythm, inconsistencies. So I'm really banking on Trevor to get back to who he is, slinging the football, playing confident. Liam Cohen, to be fair, Liam Cohen did bring out the best version of Baker Mayfield we've ever seen. A guy who's just confident, letting the ball rip, trusting his reads. If he can do something similar with Trevor Lawrence, who we all believe is even more talented than Baker, they were both number 1 overall picks, but Trevor's taller, longer, quicker, more athletic. There's no reason that the Jags can't be competing for a playoff spot and over 6.5 wins. I like that pick a lot. I also like the over 5.5 for the Raiders. This feels like one of the easier picks in this entire video, just because they're getting massive upgrades at quarterback, massive upgrades at coach. Pete Carroll, 73 years old, still has enough energy to run up and down the sideline all game long. He's going to coach up that defense. Max Crosby is a one-man wrecking crew. We know that. He accounts for a team's pass rush pretty much on his own. So he's going to draw double teams. He's going to wreak havoc for the quarterback. He's going to disrupt him, get him off his spots. Max Crosby's that kind of guy. And then on the secondary, Pete Carroll, that's where he makes his money, really, coaching up secondaries, making defensive units complement each other really well. If he can do a little bit of that here with the Raiders, I think the offense is going to be able to put up points. I mean, Geno, he's more than serviceable, really. He's been putting up good numbers for a few years now in Seattle. Got to the playoffs once. The division is brutal, but I don't think they're going to struggle to pick up 6 wins. I don't think there's a team in the league that improved more at quarterback, going from Aiden O'Connell to Geno, and at coach, going to Pete Carroll, than the Raiders did this offseason. I think they're in a really good spot. The over 5.5 feels like a slam dunk, as does the under 5.5 for the Saints. Just chaos, personnel limitations. I don't think they're well coached enough either. Kellen Moore, he's going to have a ton to learn, and his hands are full, really. And he's going to go from these premier offensive units with really good players, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott in Dallas, and then Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, best O-line, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and then he has none of that in New Orleans. It's not really his fault. I just think he's playing with one hand tied behind his back. He's going to have just far too many holes on that offensive unit to make any noise. So we're going to go with the under 5.5. I like the Giants. I really do like the Giants. I think they have one of the premier defensive lines in the entire league, and that vastly improves any defense. You know, when you have a good defensive line that constantly gets after the quarterback, that makes the linebackers better, that makes the corners better, that makes the safeties better. It just makes everybody better defensively when you have a really dominant defensive line like that. Jackson Dart is showing flashes. I don't expect him to start right off the bat. That's going to be a really interesting decision for Brian Daboll. I think they're going to start a little conservative, go with Russell Wilson for the first few weeks and see how that goes. But it's really reassuring to know that you have Jackson Dart, somebody who's really slinging it right now with confidence in the preseason. You have that in your back pocket and you can deploy him at any time. The New York Jets are tricky. I don't like what I've seen from Justin Fields throwing the ball, but I do think he offers that dimension of, athleticism, scrambling, getting out of the pocket, quarterback design runs, just the complete opposite of what we saw last year with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he throws the ball well enough consistently to be a real threat. The offense might be average at best, and that's going to be asking a lot of that defense. But my heart says go over 5.5, but my head says go under 5.5, and that's what we're gonna do. I feel for guys like Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall, those 2022 draft picks. It looked like as soon as they broke into the league, they were going to be, challenging for a playoff spot every single year. They started 7-4 that year. They were winning big games, and they kind of fell off to end that year. They bring in Aaron Rodgers. Next year gets injured. That year's kind of a wash with Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers is finally healthy last year. It goes sideways again, and then here you are. Year 4 now, really looking for contract extensions. I know Sauce and Garrett are both locked up now, but guys like Breece looking for contract extensions, looking to win games and play meaningful football. I'm not sure they're going to get that this year, and that really hurts as a Jets fan. And speaking of meaningful football, I'm not sure the Titans will get there, but at least they have a quarterback. At least they have a reason to look forward to watching their team play on Sundays. Cam Ward, he can really sling it. Really under-discussed, like I've mentioned previously. He's a number 1 overall pick. He checks all the boxes. He's not coming from like this really hyped background like a generational prospect or anything like that, but he put together a really great year at Miami, and then he's showing good flashes here in his first year in the NFL in the preseason. So I think with him and just improvements they've made on all across their roster, I think they can get to 6 wins. I don't see why that's unreasonable. And then with the Browns, the quarterback carousel, who knows who's going to be starting. Joe Flacco's definitely going to be starting week 1, but we'll see what they do after that. A lot of moving pieces. You got guys like Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett defensively who are just sensational players, but them two alone, that's not going to be enough to really win a ton of games. I think there's this group of 3 teams at the bottom here, all in the AFC. They're going to be in the quarterback market sooner rather than later, especially looking at the Jets, because I think the Titans really believe they've got their guy in Cam Ward. But the Browns and the Jets, they're going to be looking for a marquee guy either in the draft, most likely in the draft rather than free agency, but names like Arch Manning and stuff like that. So we'll see if the wheels fall off at some point during the season and what they do once they start gearing up for next year's draft. But yeah, we're going to submit all these picks. It was quite a lot, 32. We did it for all 32 teams. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to submit these picks. And like I've said at the beginning, I'm going to check in somewhere around mid-season, week 8 or 9, and then see how we're tracking. And then once again at the end of the year, see how we finished up and see if we have any ball knowledge whatsoever. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave it today. Thank you.